The Philippines in the 19th century as Rizal's context. These are the Group 2 members: Rachel D. Toledo, Shandale A. Hatamosa, Eden May A. Tilap, Rochelle D. Toledo, J. Marisol D.T.
Industrial Revolution. It is an economic revolution which started with the invention of the steam engine and resulted in the use of equipment in the manufacturing sector in the cities of Europe. Farmers from rural areas migrate to cities to become workers. It is the first occurrence of women domestication or stay-home wife. In 1834, Spain opened Philippines' economy to world commerce, or trade. New ports and cities drew to demand of trade and manufacturing. Furthermore, the fast tempo of economic development in the Philippines during 19th century, facilitated by the Industrial Revolution, resulted in the rise of a new breed of influential and wealthy Filipino middle class. French Revolution, a political revolution in Europe that lasted from 1789 to 1799. The revolution overthrows the old monarchy and system and put up a republic that is based on the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. This political disturbance caused by the revolution reached neighboring countries and even Philippines, which gave an idea to seek reform against the Spanish rule, cracking the fabric of the old colonial system and introducing through crack perilous possibilities of reform, of equality, and even emancipation. As an impact, colonies of Spain gained momentum for independence, which is the Philippines, have gained their idea and courage to achieve its freedom. American Revolution. North America overthrew the rule of the British Empire and rejected the British monarchy to make the United States of America a sovereign nation. In this period, the colonized first rejected the authority of British Parliament to govern without representation and form self-governing independent states. The American Revolution had given the world in the 19th century the idea that colonized people can gain their independence from their colonizers. The Americans were able to overthrow their British colonial masters to gain independence and status of one sovereign nation state.
The Church in the 19th century. In the 19th century, the Catholic Church faced challenges in Europe and Spain due to growing secularization and anti-clerical movements. While the Church was powerful in Europe, it clashed with new republican states and unified countries. In Spain, liberals viewed the Church as an obstacle to reforms, leading to efforts to limit its influence. So meanwhile, in the Philippines, despite the weakening church authority in Europe, the local friars maintained and even consolidated their power. Filipinos turned to the friars for guidance as Spanish officials became corrupt. The friars held immense control, acting as rulers in Christian towns and influencing elections, education, morals, and censorship. Dr. Rizal and nationalists aimed to discredit the friars by exposing their abuses, hoping to shift people's allegiance to Filipino leaders. The friars' increasing power fueled nationalist efforts to gain popular support for revolution and independence, highlighting the complex interplay between religion, politics, and power in the 19th century. The birth of Filipino nationalism. In the ancient days before the arrival of the Spanish colonizers, the seeds of Filipino nationalism were quietly planted in the hearts of the people. A deep sense of shared heritage, a common love for freedom, and a bond of racial origin tied them together, laying the foundation for a future united nation. When Spain set foot on Filipino soil, they unknowingly played a role in shaping the Filipino identity. Through the introduction of Christianity, the influence of Spanish civilization, and the establishment of centralized government, the Filipinos found themselves slowly woven into a shared tapestry of culture and governance.
These are the stimulating factors that influences nationalism during the 19th century. First, opening of the Philippines to world trade. Second, rise of an enlightened middle class. Third, Spanish Revolution of 1868. Fourth, opening of the Suez Canal. Fifth, influx of liberal ideas. Sixth, Cavite Mutiny of 1872. Seventh, martyrdom of Fathers Burgos, Gomez, and Zamora. All of these stimulating factors will be discussed later on.
Opening of the Philippines to world trade. In the early 19th century, liberal economic policies in Europe influenced Spain to open up its economic policies in the Philippines. In 1809, the first English firm established itself in Manila, initiating a new era of international trade. Then, by 1859, Manila was bustling with 15 international firms from various countries. And in 1834, Manila officially opened its doors to world trade, promoting economic growth and prosperity. So over the years, more ports in the Philippines like Sual, Iloilo, Zamboanga, Cebu, Legazpi, and Tacloban joined global trade. Increased contact with global trade led to advancements in agriculture, business, and industry, improving the standard of living. The newfound wealth sparked a political awakening among the population, leading to a desire for change and progress in the Philippines.
In the context of the Philippines, the enlightened middle class emerged during the late 19th century, at a time when the country was under Spanish colonial rule. This group of individuals included scholars, professionals, writers, and activists who were influenced by the ideas of the Enlightenment and were passionate about reforming the oppressive colonial system. This middle class is made up of individuals who work in the various professions such as farming, education, law, medicine, writing, government. These individuals are seen as contributing to the advancement of society through their work and their ideas. They are educated and informed about the world around them, and they use their knowledge and skills to make positive changes in their communities. Members of the enlightened middle class were typically well-educated individuals who read books and newspapers, staying informed about political developments and social issues. They engage in discussions and debates about potential solutions to societal problems, and actively participated in political movements and initiatives aimed at bringing about positive change. One of the key aspects of the rise of the enlightened middle class was their investments in education, both for themselves and for their children. They often sent their children to colleges and universities, both domestically and abroad, to provide them with the knowledge and skills needed to excel in their chosen fields and contribute to society in a meaningful way. The leading intellectuals mentioned in the statement, such as Dr. Jose Rizal, Marcelo H. del Pilar, and others, were key figures in the propaganda movement, a nationalist movement called for political reforms and greater autonomy for the Philippines. These individuals used their platforms as writers, activists, and thinkers to raise awareness about the injustices of the colonial government, advocate for social and political reforms, and inspire their fellow countrymen to fight for independence. The Spanish Revolution. The Spanish Revolution of 1868, also known as the Glorious Revolution, was a significant uprising against the autocratic rule of Queen Isabella II of Spain. The revolution began on September 19, 1868 in Cadiz and was led by two prominent General Serrano and Prim. Both generals took advantage when Queen Isabella had a vacation in San Sebastian. The revolutionists garnered widespread support from the nation. Why people supported the two generals? It is because during the regime of Queen Isabella, the revolution was fueled by widespread discontent with their oppressive regime, characterized by corruption, economic instability, and political repression. Queen Isabella II, unable to quell the revolution, she decided to flee to France. The revolutionaries, emboldened by their victory, established a provisional government with General Serrano acting as a regent. This revolution marked a turning point in Spanish history, leading to the end of Isabella II's reign and the establishment of a new government. This is also the time when the people rose up and fought for their rights and freedoms. Opening of the Suez Canal. November 17, 1860, when the time that the Suez Canal opened. It is made by a Frenchman named Ferdinand de Lesseps. It connects the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, linking before Europe and the Orient closer. The canal facilitated travel and communication. More and more Spaniards flocked to the colony and swelled the Spanish population. When the Suez Canal opened, it allowed for easier and quicker transportation of goods between Europe and Asia. That leads to an increased trade and development in the colony. Allowed for the spread of new ideas and technologies to the Philippines. The colony was exposed to different cultures and perspectives, leading to cultural exchange and the introductions of new ideas in various fields, such as politics, science, and the arts. The influx of liberal ideas. The influx of liberal ideas in the Philippines had a profound impact on the people's perception of their own political and social conditions. Exposure to the writings of renowned liberal thinkers ignited a desire for change and reform among the Filipinos, who began to question the oppressive political system and advocate for more democratic principles. The ideas of Montesquieu, Rousseau, Locke, and other liberal philosophers emphasized the importance of individual rights, government accountability, and the promotion of the common good. By comparing their own situation with the democratic ideals of the American and French republics, the Filipinos recognized the need for a more just and equitable society. De la Torre's liberal ideas had a significant impact on the Philippines during his term as a governor-general. His promotion of freedom of the press and the fostering of political discussions allowed for the exchange of ideas and the creation of a more open and democratic society. His decision to eliminate the use of flogging as a form of punishment for desertion by Filipino soldiers demonstrated his commitment to humane treatment and respect for individuals' rights. One of his greatest achievements was the peaceful settlement of the agrarian reform issue in Cavite. This not only addressed the grievances of the farmers, but also showcased his ability to mediate conflicts and find peaceful solutions to complex problems. Additionally, De La Torre's economic policies aimed at promoting the development of social industries and infrastructure, ultimately leading to an increase in job opportunities and economic growth in the Philippines. His support for education and cultural initiatives also contributed to the advancement of Filipino society, promoting literacy and artistic expression. De La Torre's liberal ideas and actions during his tenure as Governor-General helped to shape the political, social, and economic landscape of the Philippines, laying the groundwork for future advancements and reforms in the country. His legacy as a progressive leader who prioritized freedom, justice, and equality continues to be remembered and celebrated in Filipino history.
The Cavite Mutiny of 1872 served as a wake-up call for the Filipino people, highlighting the injustices and abuses of Spanish colonial rule and galvanizing them to fight for their independence. It inspires a new wave of nationalist sentiment and paved the way for the rise of revolutionary movements like the Katipunan, which eventually led to the Philippine Revolution of 1896 and ultimately the country's independence from Spain in 1898. So the Mutiny was quickly suppressed by the Spanish authorities, but its repercussions were far-reaching. The Spanish government used the incident as a pretext to crack down on Filipinos' dissent and further tighten its control over the colony. Many Filipino priests, intellectuals, and leaders were arrested and executed in the aftermath of the Mutiny, sparking outrage and fueling the flames of resistance.
During the 19th century, the Philippines and Spain were intricately linked due to Spain's colonial rule over the archipelago. First is the colonial rule. The Philippines was under Spanish colonial rule for over 3 centuries from the arrival of Ferdinand Magellan until the end of Spanish-American War. There is also a cultural change where Spanish colonization brought significant changes to the Philippine society, including the introduction of Christianity. This is also the century where political awakening witnessed the rise of Filipino nationalism and political consciousness influenced by Dr. Jose Rizal, Marcelo del Pilar, and Andres Bonifacio emerged as leaders advocating for reforms and eventually independence from Spanish rule.
In 10 years, more than 50,000 men and women built a structure of colossal dimensions. On August 15, 1914, the Panama Canal was inaugurated, uniting the world through an 80-kilometer route that connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Since its opening, the United States operated and administered the Panama Canal. Throughout the 20th century, Panama struggled in several occasions for sovereignty over the waterway and its surrounding areas.
So, we will now have the life and works of Rizal in 1808. The Philippines was under Spanish colonial rule. This period marked the first and start of various reforms and changes in the Spanish colonial administration due to Napoleonic Wars and the subsequent transfer of power from Spanish crown to the colonies. However, these changes did not significantly improve the socio-economic conditions of the Filipino people. Jose Rizal, our national hero here in the Philippines, was not born during this time. Also, in 1812, the Philippines was still under the Spanish colonial rule. This period saw continued struggles for independence and reforms among Filipino populace and limited its success. Through this, growing up in a colony marked by oppression and inequality, through reforms of writings of Rizal exposes the abuses of Spanish authorities and social justice of Filipino nationalism. And now, moving on, in 1833, the Philippines remained a Spanish colony characterized by social injustice, economic exploitation, and limited political rights for the Filipino people. It was during this time that Jose Rizal's parents, Francisco Mercado and Teodora Alfonso, were born. Rizal was in 1861, would later grow up in this environment and witness the injustices firsthand, which greatly influenced his view and activism. Jose Rizal's life and works were profoundly shaped by the socio-political landscape of his time. Growing up in a colony marked by oppression and inequality, Rizal became a prominent advocate for reforms through his writings, which exposed the abuses of Spanish authorities and called for social justice and Filipino nationalism. As we all know, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo are regarded as pivotal works that ignited Filipino nationalist movement and paved the way for the country's eventual independence from Spanish colonial rule.
There are three notable Asian figures during the time of Jose Rizal for several reasons. Like Rizal, they were all prominent anti-colonial activists who fought against Western colonial powers in Asia. They played each a significant role in their respective countries' struggles for independence. So during the time of Dr. Jose Rizal, the late 19th century was a period of great turmoil and change in Asia. While Rizal was fighting for the independence of his native Philippines, there were other notable Asian figures who were also making their mark on history. So in India, Mahatma Gandhi was beginning to rise to prominence as a leader in the fight against British colonial rule. Through his philosophy of nonviolent resistance, Gandhi would go on to become one of the most influential figures in the history of Indian independence movement. So another such figure was Sun Yat-sen, a revolutionary leader in China who played a key role in the overthrow of the Qing dynasty. Known as the father of the modern China, so Sun Yat-sen's vision of a democratic and socialist society inspired millions of people across Asia during that time. So the third one notable Asian was a Vietnamese. He was a Vietnamese revolutionary and politician who served as the president in 1945 to 1969 and chairman in 1969 of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. He played a key role in the fight for the Vietnamese independence from French colonial rule and later in the Vietnam War against the United States. He is regarded as the national hero in Vietnam, and he is often referred to as an Uncle Hu. His ideas and leadership continue to influence Vietnamese politics and society to this day.